The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this hosting platform or any associated entities.
We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
Welcome to After Dark with Jamie and Clint, a podcast where our hosts examine questions about the Christian faith. Questions that are not easy to ask and even harder to answer. No topic is off limits. Contents of this podcast may cause you to rethink long-held beliefs. Listener discretion is advised. And now, here's Jamie and Clint.
All right, thank you, Delroy, for that introduction. Yes, this is After Dark with Jamie and Clint. I'm Clint. He's Jamie.
Little Jamie.
And we're going to do something a little bit different. When we first started out, we started out audio only.
Audio only, yeah.
And most of our subscribers are with YouTube and video. So we thought what we would do is go back to our very first episode and redo our very first episode. So this is called Grace Revisited.
Grace Revisited, man.
And so hopefully you'll enjoy this one. And so I guess we'll try to go along with our same path. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll go with the same outline. I don't think we've changed much on our stance on grace at all.
Not in the last few weeks or whatever.
I think we've grown, but not changing.
Anyway, so let's get into grace. That grace is something that I think a lot of people it's become a buzzword.
Yeah. Yeah. You think so?
I think it's become the buzzword here, in the last few years. And, a lot of people talk about it and, but I don't think a lot of people really, really understand it. One of my favorite songs, is a country song. And, it's called People Are Crazy. And a line in that song is, we talked about, him and this old guy he met at this bar, so we talked about God's grace, as one of the lines in it. And I thought it's even made it into country music, God's grace,
Oh, yeah.
But I just don't think that people really, it's a buzzword, but I really don't think people understand what grace really is.
You want to hear a really cool story?
Yeah.
This is not even, this is really happened. Who's the guy that did this song? What was his name? That you just talked about. Oh, God is where 8 years. Yes, people are crazy.
Billy
Carrington. Yeah. So Casey, ask her about this later. My wife knows this guy down in Georgia they were all family friends with. He hit the lottery. Multi-millionaire. And most rednecks, if we get a lot of money, we splurge.
Oh, yeah.
So he threw a birthday party for one of his daughters when she was a teenager and hired Billy Carrington for a private concert.
Oh, wow.
And he brought that old guy.
Really?
Yeah, and he was in
the video?
Yeah, the video. And she said that Billy Carrington didn't really hang out with anybody, but the old dude hung out with him and was just like super cool. But anyway, I thought it was interesting she brought that up. Oh, he reminded me.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I was like, do you know him? Can I meet him? She's like, no, not at all. About a millionaire. Well, see, you said it's like a buzzword, and I was raised in church like you were. And, for a lot of you guys out there in other countries, if you're a missionary, you maybe know what we're saying. But we were raised with the word grace, God's grace, grace of God, whatever.
Amazing grace.
Amazing. We hear it all the time, but didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're raised with this theory, this word, but you don't really see it in practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the thing now. But why do you think it's becoming such a buzzword now? I mean, you're really getting into the culture. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's people like us, and I'm not shooting Longhorn or anything, but I think there's people like us that are making inroads now. Now, when I first really got into studying grace and understanding grace, it really threw my father for a loop.
Oh, really?
And, and
full school.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, my father was he was a pastor's pastor. And what I mean by that is, people would go to the pastor when they had problems. Hey, when they need advice or whatever. Hey, pastor, so can you help? But who does the pastor go to? And the word. And so there were a lot of pastors. I can count them, probably 4 or 5 off the top of my head, that they regularly came to my dad, for advice and spiritual counsel. So he was their advisor. Anyway, so he's, that's why I think he was like pastor's pastor, sort of thing. And he crossed all denominations. It wasn't just one particular.
Right.
But
it's a great legacy.
Yeah. But I say that to say, when I got into studying grace and really following what grace was, I remember my dad he had told my mother and several other family members, he said, "Oh man, I let that kid go way too soon from home. Yeah, you really thought I just went off the deep end."
Oh yeah, you're a hippie.
Yeah, yeah, and it wasn't until it's probably about 5-10 years later that he started going, "Hey, wait a minute," and there's a guy by the name of Les Feldick. He was out of Oklahoma, I believe, and he studied or taught for grades to me. And my dad had stumbled onto him and was listening to him. It's kind of funny. This guy was telling the same things I was saying, for 10 years.
Yeah.
But my father was like, he wasn't listening to me, but he would listen to this guy. And this guy's saying the same thing I was saying. I was like, hey, wait a minute, man. What? But anyway,
something wrong with the guys.
Yeah, it's normally, yeah. What did Jesus say? A prophet is not without
honor and on
for his own. Yeah, and it's sort of the same thing. But anyway, and then he found grace, discovered that he was living under the law, grace, and so. But anyway, getting back to why I think, but people like you and I are making inroads now, and all of a sudden now we're not really considered kooks or
not the fringe anymore.
Or not the fringe, or my
heretics.
Heretic.
All that.
As my father was
liberal.
Liberal. You name it. Or like my dad said, I let that boy go home, leave home way too early. Right.
I used to get this a lot, and I still do from time to time. My circle's gotten a little smaller and different,
Mm-hmm.
Some with people of my own tribe, kind of a thing, a lot. But when I was in a different environment, I would get called a grace preacher a lot, but not in a nice way. So you're one of those grace preachers.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the guys, like, what do you mean, like, it's because of grace we're here? I mean, of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Outside of that, all we have is the institution of religion. And he said, well, just tell people live any way they want to live, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you get that? Well, we went through this whole thing with Michael Tate recently. Right? Still haven't forgot that one. We just got to gear up for it, get past this heat wave, and dig in. But I remember when that happened, and I caught some flack as far as, well, where's the standard at, right? How do you hold people up to a certain accountability, all that stuff? And I was like, man, look at Jesus and the woman called an adulterer. And you and I have talked about this. I was like, grace does not equal justification of sin. Right. Just because you show somebody grace doesn't mean you justify their sin. Right. Jesus showed that woman grace, right? That doesn't mean he justified her sin. He said, go and sin no more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just kind of ingrained in our culture.
Yeah.
That if we don't take a stand and attack people who have sinned, then we're justifying their sin.
Right. Yeah.
And grace is the just for So anyway, I feel like people get it confused, and it's like, look, I'll show you grace all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I approve of anything.
Sure.
And by the way, our approval doesn't really matter.
No.
I mean, I can approve what this guy over here does. And what was the old saying? It might get you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I mean,
that and 50 cents will get you.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, ain't gonna do much for you. But I think that's what it is a lot of times people are afraid of it because they don't fully understand the depths of God's grace in their own life.
Yes.
Because until I understood it for me, and I'm pretty sure I know you well enough to say until you understood it for you, I didn't understand it for anybody else. How can you?
Yeah. There's an expression, and I'm going to use it differently from the way it was and originally intended. There's an expression, but for the grace of God, there go I.
Yeah.
And originally it's, it's I'm better than that person. But, I turn it around, and once you understand grace, then you understand your, and I'm not going to use that D word because I can't say it, but that depravity. Thank you. You understand.
Thank you, Eric.
She was a Spanish teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Erica was?
Yeah.
She's just done it all.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was a hustler, man.
Oh yeah. All right. I mean, she's done it all. And
It's crazy.
love.
Now we'll get her to say something in Spanish on the show.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We'll get her to say quick hits in Spanish.
Oh, there you go. We could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Delroy, you're gonna be fired for that episode. We'll just have just go there. Yeah, I'll take a break for that. But anyway, yeah.
I had a lady today having full blown conversation with me in Spanish, and I kept telling her I don't speak Spanish. She kept going.
Oh, really?
So I was just like, see, yeah.
No, more less than you.
What do you do? Anyway,
Well, I always just say, "Y español muy malo." Oh, no, yeah.
I don't even know that much, man.
My Spanish is very bad. But I'd tell you a story one time. I put a note, some equipment that was free to take home. And
Yeah.
we put it in Spanish because most of the warehouse workers are Spanish. We call them easel, English as a second language. Most of them, Spanish is, so I wrote it in Spanish. Just a little note said free to take home, and long story short, but nobody took anything. And so another guy, and he's from Miami, and he married a Cuban lady, so he speaks it fluently. And he come back, he went out there and saw it. Saw my note. He come back in, and he's looking at my note, and he looks at me, he goes, "What do you think you wrote?" And I said, "Free to take home." He said, "No, you idiot. You wrote free drinks at my house." And he was like, no wonder nobody's taking it. Like, I ain't going to freaking.
Yeah, they also
rule that area. And I was like, but I told him, I said, to my defense, I learned Spanish in the Navy. So,
hey, well, that's what it is.
But anyway, I have no idea what we're on that.
Talking about?
But anyway, chasing that rabbit. But, and I don't even know what I was talking about to start with. So, whatever.
Well, I do know this much. It says here, to define grace. That was our original thing.
Yes.
So we haven't looked over these notes since we did the show. Like, you just brought it up.
Yeah.
So we're going back in it as fresh as ever, and you'll see this is authentic, not scripted. This is just thoughts, where we're at. Define forgiveness.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people think that grace and forgiveness, or forgiveness and salvation are synonymous, and they're not. Forgiveness and salvation are two separate things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, grace is more toward salvation than it is forgiveness. It doesn't take a lot of grace for forgiveness. It takes a lot of grace for salvation, but forgiveness and salvation are two separate things. They're not the same thing. And, I think, people kind of bundle them together.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah. So, I will sound like a heretic whenever
Here it comes.
when I say this. God has forgiven everyone.
Are you saying God has already saved everyone?
No, forgiveness and salvation are completely different.
So you're not a universalist?
No,
At
not.
least you don't know what that is. That's the teaching that everybody's saved. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah, they'll find out.
I think it's hot now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and let's say that again about God has forgiven everyone.
Yes. All right.
He's not saved everyone.
Yeah. And Jesus taught using parables, little stories, and because really, we're dumb. I mean, even compared to God, even Einstein, Solomon, whoever you want is still stupid.
Yeah.
So
infantile brain.
Yeah, and so God has to, Jesus has to like dumb things down for us, and so he taught in parables, and so I'll do the same thing when, what's the God has forgiven everyone. How's that work? And so here it is. It's like I'm walking down the street, and I pick up a rock and I throw a rock, and this rock goes through one of the windows in your house.
Yeah.
Busts it all, right? Now, you can. Now, I'm in the wrong. I did it. I broke your window.
Right.
Now, you could come out and come over to me and say, hey, it's okay. I forgive you. I know it was you didn't intend to do it on purpose. This, that, and the other. It's okay. I forgive you for it. All right, that's fine and good. Now you've forgiven me, but the window's still broken, and I'm the one who still broke it. That still needs to be repaired.
You're still guilty.
I'm still guilty. I'm still on the hook. There's reparations that's got to be made. That window's got to get fixed.
Right.
And so forgiveness is simply that. Peter went to Jesus one time. Peter asked him, said, "Hey, how many times do I got to forgive my brother every time that he does something wrong against me? 7 times?" And Jesus, said, "No, it's got to be times 7." And he didn't literally mean like 490 times. It's like you got a little notebook and you're like, all right, that's number 57. It's none of that, but he's talking about you don't keep it.
Yeah.
And but that's all about forgiveness. But there's still the fact, like the window, the window is still broken, and I'm still the one that did it.
Right. Yeah.
And you still got a broken window in the house. And you can forgive me for it, that's fine, but that window's still got to be. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Somebody's got to pay for it. Yeah.
Right. Either you pay for it, I pay for it, somebody's paying for it. And I'm still on the hook for it because I'm the one that did it. Right. Now, again, you forgive me for it. We're still friends. That's fine. But I still got to pay for that window.
Yeah.
And so that's forgiveness. Forgiveness is not dependent on the person who wronged you. Forgiveness is dependent on you, the person being wronged, to forgive. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the wrongdoer. If you look throughout Scripture, Jesus talked about the fact of forgiving. And forgiving is all about you, as far as you being the I hate to use the word victim, but you being the victim, you being the person who got hurt or got wronged. Forgiveness is all about you forgiving that person and absolving them of any ill feelings that you have. You can move on from those.
Yeah.
And that's forgiveness.
Well, and the thing is, as I listen to you say this too, yes, it's about the person that's been wronged, but we're also commanded by God, by Jesus, to forgive people. He tells us to pray for our enemies and people that use us and all these things. So it is from the other cheek, we're commanded to show forgiveness as the people who have been done wrong, right? But I think that the reason it's like, how can you ask me to forgive somebody who has just treated me like crap, abused me, hurt me? But again, it goes back to our own standing, the depravity and all of that. It's like, well, who much has been forgiven, right? Yeah. So it's like, we have been forgiven by the one we've done wrong, which is Jesus. So he says, is that kind of where you're going with this?
Yeah, it's Jesus, again, talking about parables, and you mentioned this, I think, one of the previous episodes. But you talked about the parable of the servant who owed a lot of money to his master, and his master when threw him in prison and all this, and he begged him, and his master forgives him for that great debt, but then he turned around and had somebody else that owed him just a little bit, and he was intolerant to that person. It's kind of
choked him.
Yeah,
he painted a picture, didn't he?
And so and so I think that's us, as much has been forgiven of us, and how dare we then not extend even the little bit to someone else. So the wrong that we've done to God is greater than any wrong that anybody else could do to us. And I think it's where that parable does come. It's what Jesus trying to drive home, is that he's forgiven us way more than we'll ever forgive somebody else against us.
Yeah.
So how dare we hold a grudge on death when God doesn't hold him.
I got to tell you this, and I'm glad we're going back through this because this is something that just came to my mind that happened 2 or 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And didn't think of it the last time we did this. It was a lady in a church, young woman in her 20s, and this is what she told me. She said, I was raised in a Christian home, gave my life to Jesus at a young age. She said, I've never engaged in gross sin. You know, and what she means is I've never slept around, done dope, never been drunk, never whatever. She named the list off. And at first I was like, man, are you kind of bragging on your salvation there, you know, and went to a Christian college? But what she said was, she said, I know I love Jesus, but I don't think I fully understand the depth of his forgiveness. And she pointed out to me and this other guy who both has some rough backgrounds like you guys do. And what she was saying was because I guess because we've been forgiven so much that we understand the weight of that debt. Like, wow, you can forgive me, kind of like the servant, not understanding his. And she said, I just don't feel like I fully understand, you know, I was forgiven so much. And I said, I've never thought about it like that, man. And I would say the one that has been forgiven a lot, when you look at our human experience, you know, but same with you, same with me, some other folks we know, it's like, dude, I know what I was. And he chose to forgive me in spite of it, right? And it helps us understand that forgiveness. But it still doesn't get the Christian off the hook.
No, it doesn't. But before we go to that, just to address her, I would love to have. I wish I'd been in that in that conversation, because what what I would have told her is, you got to see it from God's eyes, and it's that He spared you.
Yes,
from all that, because talking to these other people that have overcome so much.
Yeah.
Every one of you would say, if you had to go through it again, you wouldn't. Well, if you can bypass that, you would. It wasn't a joyride, and it's not a badge of honor. But so I would say to that young woman, I would tell her, you look at that and thank God that He spared you of that.
Yeah. And in fact, the other guy on the conversation, he said, I wish I had your testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I said, man, now that I understand God as the loving Father that He is, I said, man, look at all those years I wasted that I could have devoted to Him.
Yeah.
So it goes back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It's like half empty, half full. I said the same thing. I wish I would have, like you said, have it to do over.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, there's
but that's the hand we've been dealt. So if that's the hand you've been dealt, whichever side it is, I mean, hey, God's getting glory regardless.
Yeah. Scripture talks about, God speaks in this still small voice, which is, it's a whisper, it's a whisper.
We don't whisper.
And yeah. Well, there's some people that just, they're not listening to, and they need a smack on the back of the head. Well, and so, she was in tune with the whisper. She could, and the whisper got her attention. Whereas, smack on the back of the head,
But, and it's so awesome that you say that, because as you're saying that, my mind goes to the couple of guys in the Old Testament. You got your Adams and your Noahs and Jacobs, all these different people, heroes. Did some terrible stuff, and you hear it, it's aired out. Now, did God use them? Man, yeah. By the way, that's not saying go out here and bust hell wide open and God's going to, what it's saying is, He's saying, look, even as screwed up as you are, if you trust me, I'll use you. But then there's a guy named Enoch. We don't read of his great testimony because he didn't have a testimony of rebellion. His testimony was he walked with God so closely, God said, you're not going to taste death. I'm taking you up. And I'm like, that's a testimony.
Yeah.
He's got like this much of the passage. And God said, you come hang out with me.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that for a second. Who had the better experience, right? So,
and you talk about it, he has that much, and then you talk about like Moses or Noah and their volumes, But that being said, of the two, we talk about them both equally.
Yes, we did. That's true.
So I would say Enoch's is more powerful because there's very little of it.
Yeah,
and so But we do chase rabbits a lot.
We do. Well, we hadn't done this in a couple of weeks. We've been crazy busy, and it's our summertime now, and we're trying to gear up for the fall. So I think we just and it's hot.
it's 212 degrees outside or something like that.
I don't know. South Carolina is known for its humidity, and we're in the middle of a heat wave.
Yeah.
It's 103 today,
Yes.
and I don't know what the heat index probably was.
I read it. It was 109, I think.
Oh my gosh!
But you know,
It'll make your eyeballs sweat.
Yeah.
Not tears, sweat.
Yeah.
It's different. Promise you.
high humidity. If you don't know, you sweat and it doesn't evaporate, which is what cools you off. You just sweat and you stay sweaty, and
It's a waxy film. It's pretty gross.
yeah, your clothes are wet, so you can't cool off because your sweat doesn't evaporate because of the high humidity.
Welcome to Carolina, baby.
Yeah, that's it.
But the next thing that we go to is what is salvation. So when we talk about defining forgiveness,
Yeah.
and it's not synonymous with salvation. So what then is salvation?
Yeah,
And the great compared to this, what you're saying.
yeah. Now, what salvation is just hold on to that analogy of the broken window, because I will get back to that one. So just remember that I've broken Jamie's window. Jamie has forgiven me for it, but the window is still
Our
broken,
window.
and I'm still at fault for it. So hold on to that as we go on. But so that's forgiveness. Salvation is, and we'll use another analogy. And this other analogy is, let's say you're in a candy store. All right.
50 Cent wrote a song about the candy store.
Yeah, different candy store. Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff fix.
Then was that peg leg?
That's
Inside jokes are. Anyway,
you ever lived in the Twilight Zone? This is
yes. It's the heat wave, I'm telling you. But you're in a candy store, and so you go into a candy store and you see a candy bar on, your favorite candy bar, you get it, and you eat it.
Yeah.
All right. And now the problem is now you realize you don't have the money to pay for that candy bar. Oh, you. Okay. Now, eventually you're going to have to leave the candy store. You're going to have to. But here's the problem is there's a police officer outside the door there, and as soon as you haven't done anything technically illegal yet because you're still in the candy store.
technically.
Yeah. So you haven't stolen it or anything. You're about to leave, because you have to leave eventually. And so you got the cashier there, and you pay the cashier, and then you can leave your fine. But if you don't pay the cashier, you got a problem. So you go to leave. Now, when you go leave, you step outside that door, the police officer is going to take you, cuff you. You're not going to get to go home. You're going to go to jail because you committed a crime, and a crime that you couldn't pay. You took the candy bar and you couldn't pay for it. But now let's say that you're still in the store, and a person walks in and goes over to the cashier, and he starts a tab. I don't know what a tab is.
Candy stores have tabs.
Yeah, 50 cents plus.
Yes.
Anyway,
Charge up to 50 cents.
Charge up 50 cents. So anyway, he starts tabbing and puts money in there. Now, but he doesn't go and get any candy bar, get any candy at all. He doesn't protect it. He doesn't eat anything. He doesn't get a drink or anything.
Yeah.
Right. But he puts money up on it. Now, he tells you that now if you will allow him, he will put your candy bar in his tab.
Oh, wow.
And then when you leave the candy store, it's all paid for, baby. And,
wow.
You get to go home.
Paid in full. Paid in full.
So now what that analogy is, if you haven't figured out, now the candy store is one, obviously, and the candy that you take is sin. Anything you can think of, from a lie to murder. I mean, it's all the, all sin is the candy that you take.
In whatever variety it is the same thing. Whatever variety, right? Yeah.
All the same. And then the guy that comes in and starts to tab, that's Jesus. And he comes in and
Really remarkable.
he does not, he doesn't sin. So, but he pays for sin with his death. And it's his resurrection that gives him the ability to
Awesome analogy.
And so, I'll put your sin on my tab. I already paid for it. I didn't have candy, but
Yeah.
I'll put your sin on my tab. And then you walk out the candy store, you leave life, you die, you go to heaven, you go home, you don't go to jail or hell. So that is a very basic, very elementary analogy of that's what salvation is. Salvation is Jesus saying, I will put your sin on my tab.
Now, can I say something real quick? I would have never thought till we started doing this this show, because we'll put a bunch of stuff down, and sometimes we talk about different topics, like I reference the Michael Tate thing, or some modern thing happening around us, some music. We'll reference this, but when we go through doctrines, beliefs, all this stuff, grace, it really is like, okay, it's a simple little bitty small short thing, and then when you dig into it, it's so much deeper. And that's why I think I know that we said in the beginning, we didn't understand it, and a lot of people don't, because it's like, yeah, grace, okay, it's a Christian word. I don't really know what it means, but we use it in church. It's so deep, right? There's so much to it. So to go off of what you're saying here, I'm thinking about Jesus on the cross, right? And he said, it is finished. What was the word? To telestai? Is that what it was? But what he was saying was it was actually a legal term. Do you remember that? It was a legal term that somebody would say once you paid your debt off, let's say you pay off this property, it's the last payment. They would stamp it with those words, paid in full.
Paid in full.
In other words, it is finished. That's what it is finished means. It means paid in full. Debt has been legally satisfied, just like the tab in the 50 cents candy store, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, that's the legal side of it. Okay, it is finished. But then there's another side, and I like what you put there. Would you read that? I think it's D.
Yeah. Salvation, not only, a D or E?
Oh, no, the D. I don't read that.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to roll back to.
Okay, we'll go on.
It's, it's the analogy here we're using for like speeding ticket is salvation erases, because in Romans, you're talking about a legal term.
Yep.
It used to be in a legal term. God really uses that a lot, because in Romans chapter 5 verse 1 he uses a legal term, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But salvation removes the guilt. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, a speed ticket. I'm traveling home and I'm speeding. Police officer pulls me over, writes me a speeding ticket. Now, let's say somebody who was not speeding pulls up.
Innocent
person. He wasn't speeding. He comes up and he goes, "Hey, Clint, if you'll allow me, I'll pay for that speeding ticket." Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, here's the thing, though. He could pay for that speeding ticket, but it's still on record.
Yeah.
Now it's paid in full. Yeah. But there's still a record of it. There's still a record that I did something wrong.
That's why they pull up your driving record. It's like, I paid the fine, but there's still a record of it. It's there.
Salvation removes that. Because here's what it says in Romans chapter 5, verse 1, the legal term he uses it. He says that we are made right with God. We're through faith, we were justified, is actually how it says it. And the word justified there is a legal term that means innocent.
So these big terms that we use a lot of times actually have practical meaning to them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so justified means what again?
Justified means being pronounced innocent.
Pronounced as if you didn't do it.
Right. There are actually three, people know of two legal, there's three legal verdicts. Most people know.
Oh, I love this. I remember this. I love it.
The one verdict is guilty.
Yes.
And,
there's evidence.
There's evidence. And beyond a reasonable doubt, you did it.
You're guilty. Okay. We're done.
Now, there's not guilty.
Not guilty.
Yeah. Not guilty. There's evidence. And you might have done it, but there's some doubt.
Mm.
And as long as there's doubt, you're not guilty.
Guilty means you're guilty.
You did it.
You're not innocent.
You did it.
Not guilty means there's not quite enough evidence, but you still are not necessarily innocent.
You could have done it.
Not guilty is not the same as innocent.
Right. That's the third verdict. Innocent. Innocent means there's no evidence against you.
You can't find fault.
You cannot find fault. There's no way you did it. And that's the third legal verdict. And, most of us know guilty, not guilty. Very few of us know that there's a third verdict, innocent. And that verdict, innocent, is the same word that's been used in Romans chapter 5, verse 1, when it says, through faith we are justified.
And it adds a lot of power to what Pilate said. I don't find any guilt in this man.
Yes.
He is innocent.
He's innocent. Pilate
adds a lot to it.
Pilate passed verdict of innocent.
And even Jesus, he said, I'm laying it down. What he was saying was, yes, I'm innocent, but I'm going to be whatever. And I'm thinking too, this is what I love when you said it removes it. Because I remember we talked about this before. They come to arrest Jesus in the garden. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Come to arrest him. How you say it? Is it Malchus?
Malchus.
So they come to arrest him. He's a servant, right? Of the guard, of the high priest. So there's a servant guy. And y'all remember the story, whether you know the names or not. Peter, being a hothead who was obviously from the southern side of Israel, right? Yeah. Down south, baby. And he cuts the dude's ear off. And I always said, man, Jesus is such a peaceful, loving guy. He said, hey, that's not what we do. It's not what my kingdom is. And he puts the ear back. He says, hey, man, put it where he's sword. But it wasn't until recently that somebody really just broke that down for me. It said, you got to understand, when he cut this guy's ear off, and he's a servant, right? Mm-hmm. That's the same as attacking an official. Mm-hmm. He could possibly be found guilty and put to death. That would be the penalty.
Over death sentence.
When Jesus put his ear back, he reversed the events. In other words, there's no evidence.
There's no evidence of it.
He removed the evidence of his sin, of his wrongdoing.
In that small little scene there, Jesus just explained and displayed salvation.
So before we move on, can you guys get this? Clint and I are going to talk amongst ourselves for a second, but for you, if you're still wrestling with what grace really is, watch this dialogue. Hey, I know the stuff I've done in my life. You know a lot of it. I know some of your stuff. But do you believe, and you agree with me actually, that if we stand before God right now and we said, hey, God, I know I've done A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, and he would go, I don't see a record of that. It's not written down.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, turn a couple more pages out. It's not there. Would you agree that's what grace is? He removes the evidence of our guilt.
Yes.
Or salvation.
Yeah. If we go back to the analogy of, I threw the rock in your window, must be your window. And you've forgiven me. About that. And how forgiveness is salvation. Now here's what salvation is. Salvation repairs the window and removes the rock. There is no evidence that I ever threw a rock through the window.
If I could say anything to anybody out there, it is that even once I was saved, right? And I believe we've been on the same path, and I bet there's somebody smack dab in the middle of where we once were.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, I get that I'm saved and all of that, but man, I'm still guilty. Man, I am still this piece of garbage. I am still this sinner. I don't even say, I know a lot of times we'll say it and I don't get mad about it, but for me personally, I don't say I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm not, the guy's going, what?
You're what?
You're a son of God. You're my kid. Because he removes it. And once you understand that, the freedom that comes, when Jesus said, I give you life more abundantly, I don't think you receive the real abundant life until you fully grasp what he's done for you, which is to remove that. And I think some of us are just walking around like, I don't know how you'd say it, like just peasants.
Yeah.
Like we're still under the rule of a tyrant, and we're not. We're in a relationship with a father.
Scripture uses an analogy, we're clothed in righteousness.
Clothed in righteousness.
Good you say that about peasant. I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
We're clothed in righteousness, and we still see ourselves as peasants.
And I'll say this, I don't want to throw off anybody's church or wherever they attend, they worship. But I would say if a person is wrestling with that, And it's like, hey, listen to this show, this podcast, whatever, read some stuff about grace. Philip Yancey wrote a crazy book back in the day called What's So Amazing About Grace. Pick that up.
Yeah.
And,
That's a good book.
and if you think about it, you go, okay, I hear what you're saying. But if you keep going back to a place of worship or a place of teaching where you keep being made to feel like that guilty sinner, I don't think you'll ever, sometimes I 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Am I overstepping a little bit here? Because like I told you, man, we had to get into some different circles to fully understand our right standing with God. And anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that one, except just to say it's one thing to know it, but it's a completely different thing to walk in it and live in it.
Yeah, to believe it.
To believe it.
Yeah.
We knew it for a long time. I didn't walk. I believed it. Like, I'm scared God's gonna ecclesiastical whack-a-mole. He's waiting so they can get me.
Yeah. Supernatural whack-a-mole.
Which I used that before Erica did, and then she used it. I was like, well, I thought I invented that, but never mind.
Yeah, but it's you're there's a difference in knowing something and believing. It's kind of a crazy thing. Yeah, I know that God loves me, but my actions don't prove that I really believe that.
And by the way, say that one more time.
I know that God loves me, but my actions don't show that I really believe that.
And every time I've heard something like that said in my walk with Christ, it was always, my actions. That's my sin. That's the bad stuff that I do.
No.
And it took a long time to realize, how would you explain it?
Your actions are a reflection of where you see yourself in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
And that the actions aren't. Yes, when you say it's not. You're not talking about committing sin. You're talking about where you are as the way you think God sees you.
Yes, there it is.
And you act that way. Scripture tells us to come boldly to the throne of God. He's our Father. He loves us. You have need. Come to him and, hey, Daddy, I got this problem. You come as a heir to the throne.
My goodness.
Sometimes that's not the way we do it. I'm this terrible person. I don't, I can't do that. Because you're not seeing yourself the way the Father sees you.
So we talk about our kids a lot on here. And then one of the best things that ever happens to you as a father, any parent, mom, but especially for me as a father, to understand the heart of the father. Right?
Yeah.
And so have your girls ever called you in the middle of the night to woke you up?
I don't believe so.
Well, crap, you just blew that out. Ask me that question.
Right. Has either of your daughters called you up in the middle of the night?
Or my son, I got him too.
No? Oh, your son.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, one of them. And that's the thing about it is you said come boldly before the throne. I mean, you can't do that unless you understand your relationship,
right?
Like where it's at. And yes, they've called me in the middle of the night. You know how it is. They're like, I'm calling my daddy. What if he's asleep? That's my daddy.
That's my daddy. Yeah.
Would I be upset, frustrated? Depends on the situation. I may be, but it will not change the love for my child.
You're going to meet that need.
Yes. And if your child ever told you, man, I had a rough night, even though they haven't called you right, but said, I had a rough night and I started to call you at 1 a.m, but I knew you would be asleep. What would you say?
You should call me anyway.
Why didn't you call me?
Right. Well,
that's what it means to come boldly. But you can't do that unless you understand the relationship, because one of your kids' friends may not, because they don't have that with you. You see, and I hope I'm painting a clear picture with that, but that's what it was for me for a long, long time. I just didn't understand it.
And it's not a prideful thing. It's not, look how much God loves me, how special I am. But what it is once you understand how much God loves you and the way that God sees you, then you're coming boldly to his throne. You're walking in freedom, and it's not out of a source of pride, but it's out of it comes from a place of understanding that you mean a lot to the creator of the universe.
You mean a lot to it.
You mean a lot. And it's disrespectful when you treat something that he loves so much. And we do that to ourselves. We treat ourselves poorly because of decisions that we've made and things that we've done that God has already paid for, and go sin no more. But we still hold on to that, and so we treat ourselves like dirt. And how dare we do that when the Father says, "You're priceless."
It's the equivalent, I think, of I don't know, receiving an inheritance, $1 million, and then you don't spend it, and you don't touch it, and you don't enjoy it. And it's yours, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is the blessing that whatever your Father's given you, and He has given us this relationship and this access to Him, and then we just don't exercise that kind of.
Right.
And I like what you said. We see ourselves as dirt. We see ourselves as not worthy, and all of these things. But He sees us as worthy. I know there's some bad teaching out there, but at the end of the day, I mean, there comes a time, I think, when a person just has to begin to say, if He really is the loving Father He says He is, I'm going to take Him up on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot and see what it's like.
And for those that out there today that, we were talking about license to sin, then you don't understand what we're talking about. Because as Erica said, in the episode she guest hosted with us, she said that I don't want to ever disappoint my daddy.
I'm like that.
And that's what it comes down to. It's not a license to sin. It's not, I can do whatever I want to now, no, it's, I don't want to disappoint my daddy, because I understand what he went through. I understand where I am as a person.
Yeah.
And the thoughts that go through my head, even in rush hour traffic, looking people just die,
I'm sure he doesn't think that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But, knowing that.
Fly in that car.
But understanding that through all of that, God finds me worthy of Him sacrificing His Son, finds me worthy to love me, finds me worthy to want to spend eternity with me. Knowing that puts a weight on me, an expectation on me, that I, just as if I treat myself like dirt is disrespectful, then treating Him and His love, like it's a get out of jail free card and I can just do whatever I want to, then you truly have not experienced grace, because grace is a heart change. It changes. Paul said, the things that I once loved, I now hate. The things I once hated, I now love. And he's talking about total transformation.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with salvation. There's that because of that relationship you have with the Father, you and understanding His love for you as best you can. It's as humans we have a limited and but as best as we can to understand the love that He has for us, then it goes to the point of I don't want to, as Erica said, I don't want to disappoint my dad either. And though it's not a license to sin, I just know that if I stumble and fall, my Father will pick me up.
Ooh. My oldest, Jordan Adams, was 24 and about to get married and all that stuff. And you've already been there, your kids. And she's changed because she's gotten older, grown up, right? But she'll say periodically, man, you remember when I put y'all through this and that, or I said this, or I had this bad attitude? And it's like, yeah, it was a rocky time. And she'll say stuff, I'm so sorry. Why are you apologizing? That's over. It's in the past. Not only is it in the past and you've grown past it, like you said, you have to grow and mature to fully understand the relationship and grasp it and see what it's like about disappointing your father and all that. That it's not I got to do right or I'll get kicked out of the family deal.
Right.
And it's not, well, because you're my dad, I can do what I want to do. Now it's more of, I more fully understand the love that you have for me. And man, I'm just sorry that I did that stuff. I wish I'd have got it right.
It's going to make you proud.
Want to make you proud. And then the standing of the father's always, well, it never changed my love for you.
Yeah.
It never stopped the way that I felt about you. And that's the dynamic of it all. It's on both sides, right? And I don't know how else to explain it except you have to begin to understand all the legalities behind salvation and all of that stuff. Yeah, you got to understand the price that was paid. We get that.
Yeah.
But once we get past that, now you have the opportunity to become a son or a daughter of God. Mm-hmm. Not a convert, not adopted, not a club member, a child. And when you become a child, you reap all the benefits of being in the family. And one of the main benefits of that is the Father who says, "I'm going to leave you. I'm going to forsake you." And you might do all kind of stuff, and I'll still be here.
Mm-hmm. I remember my father had a conversation with him. One of the things that I was blessed with is even as a young child, 9, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, on a school night, even. My dad would, I would stay up late at night, 11, 12 o'clock at night, talking, and spiritually, he's just pouring into me. And, I enjoyed those nights, and it was during one of those nights, my dad had relayed this to me. I knew his story, his background. He was a
roughneck.
Yeah.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. He actually joined the army to get out of being arrested for murder. So,
oh wow, we'll get through that.
But or an accessory to murder. Sorry. But anyway, he told me, he said that, he talked to my grandfather and his dad, and as he was now a husband and father, and a strange person. He said, he asked me, he said, "Dad, how did you?" Because at this time, we were just babies. So he was a father himself, but we were babies. And he was talking about it's getting up in age and teenagers, and he said, "How did you love me through?" Because I was so unlovable, and the things that I did, and the heartache that I put you and Mama through. And my dad said, my grandfather looked at him and said, "Because, son, I didn't focus on who you were at the moment. I focused on who you were going to be." And Scripture says, "Raise a child in the ways they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it." Doesn't say when they're a teenager they won't depart from it.
Hey, that's good, because I've wrestled with that one. That's good.
And he said, when they're old, they will not depart from it.
Yeah.
And he said, my grandfather told my father, he said, "I didn't focus on who you were at the moment. I focused on who you were going to be." And I think God sees us that way as well, because he's in he's in the past, he's in the present, he's in the future. He transcends time, and so because he transcends time, he knows how we're going to be, 5 years from now, and so it makes our actions that we do now, when we're so unlovable now, he knows how we're going to be and who we're going to be. And I think that has a lot to do with, how he's able to treat us and love us still in the midst of our depravity.
That's deep. That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at now?
I have no idea, other than that we've been on.
Been on it for a minute, but I'll be honest, we've got a little bit more, but I think we already hit the grace. I'll tell you what.
It's not, salvation is not earned. It's not dependent on what we do.
Do you feel like we're kind of in a good place now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really hit.
Something hit me like a ton of bricks. You're talking about your dad and stuff. So I bet these folks wonder, why don't we, especially when we talk about grace in a relationship with the Lord, we talk about our families a lot. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because I know why, but so you know why. once you really understand the relationship that we're called to have, once we really understand the dynamic of it and what it is, it's family. My kids, my parents, yours, this and that and the other. I can't talk about God and not think family.
Yeah.
I can't talk about God and not think Father. I can't talk Jesus and not think friend. And I don't know what else to even say to people except until you take him by his hand and walk with him intimately, you just won't get it. It's truly an experience thing. And I believe this with all of my heart. And I know some guys, it's kind of funny. There's a guy, one of my favorite pastors of all time, John MacArthur.
Oh, my yes.
Hashtag
Mac.
His radio broadcast is called Grace to You. Oh, it's not funny. I'm like, you're the most ungracious guy I've ever met in my life. Well, I've never met him, not really want to, but my point is, he's still a brother in Christ, and if he's saved, then it's all good. But he'd be the one we wouldn't talk to at the family reunion.
Well, yeah. It's like I say, you need to pick friends, or you stuck with your relatives.
Exactly. Stuck with your relatives.
He's the relative he's stuck with.
Yeah, we'll be the ones over there, the cool kids in the corner making fun of him at the marriage supper. But no, really, it's so funny that he has that. But I think about it and I go, man, you can sit in church or seminary or listen to podcasts, read stuff. You can get all the knowledge on the planet, but none of that is on par with understanding what it is to have a true intimate relationship with it. You can take a guy that can butcher John 3:16. He can't remember nothing. Man, he knows that's his Father. And I think that's a deeper relationship than a guy that can quote it all.
Yeah.
And we're prime examples of that, we walk through it. And so anyway, I would just say to people out there, we talk about family so much because he's our family. That is the only fair way and practical way to understand what it really is to be a person who has experienced the grace of God.
Yeah.
It's through a family thing. Because we give it, we experience it, we receive it, and that's just how it is. Any parent out there that has disowned their child because of anything, we say that's a wicked person. That's a wicked parent, evil parent. You don't do that to your child. Don't we say that?
No.
Well, what did Jesus say? Man, if a child asks his dad, wicked father.
Yeah.
And by the way, he wasn't saying some abusive guy. We're wicked in and of ourselves in our flesh, right?
Yeah, he was talking about humanity.
A human.
Yeah.
He said, let's use that word then. He said, if a child asks his human father for a loaf of bread, he's not going to give him a rock. Or ask him for a fish, he's not going to give him a serpent. How much more does your Father want to bless you? He's saying, if you think your earthly dad is good, I think we're pretty good. And we screwed up too, but we're pretty decent. How much better is God as Father? And if you really do believe that he's better, then why are you acting like he's just waiting to get you? Right. So we could go on and on and on about it, but I would say to anybody listening, it's an experience thing. You just got to jump in and experience it. Yeah. And I would dare somebody to talk to God and say, show me what it is to be your child. Show me what it is to trust you beyond what I know and what I see, and just know you.
Yeah. I remember when my wife was pregnant with her first child, I asked my dad, I said, what's it like being a father and all that? And he said, son, there are no words. You just got to experience it. Now, it's the same thing. There's no words for it. Right? There's a comedian that said one time, he said his grandfather passed away. He asked his mother, he said, Mom, when I die, will I see Grandpa again? And she said, not if you're good.
Wow. This is rough. Well, man, I'll be honest. I think we have recapped this, revisited grace, and I don't know. I mean, we got a lot more to say about it, but it's basically the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that.
Yeah. We go on, they're listening to our audio only for the very first episode. If you want to know more, it was a conversation we had that was so long we broke it in 3 parts, 3 episodes.
Did we?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk to us one night.
We figured out our groove now, I guess.
I think so. But there was something that I wanted to say, and I think that I think God said, "No, you ain't gonna say it because I don't have a filter sometimes." And it's like, whoa, I'll be your filter. You got it's not who button down. So I'll let down a little bit, and I've been a little more subdued this week as well. I think it has to do with the heat.
But I'll tell our listeners if they're not from our area, you wait till the fall hits. We come alive. Oh yeah, this heat though, man, it's like a bear in the winter. We just got dormant.
Oh yeah. And especially those of us that have a winter coat still.
Before they eat a good old Southern meal right before we get this thing up. His wife cooks for all of his family stuff before we do this, and this become an awesome thing I look forward to. I'm just saying, it is great.
Oh, I had every intention not to eat, and then then you like, oh,
I'm a bad influence.
Bad influence. So well, if you're gonna eat, I'm gonna eat. I really wish I hadn't.
But man, I've been eating fast food for a gas station fast food there. Well, I tell you what, man, I'm really excited about the direction that we're going with this. But we say this every time, right? If you're out there and you have questions and you have something you want us to talk about, drop a line, right?
Email our producer, Delroy, at DELROY, just like it's pronounced, Delroy, at ADWJC.com.
And Delroy has been unbelievably quiet, but I believe it's the weather as well. Yeah, it's just the heat. But man, if you guys, we want to hear from you. So
thank you, Delroy. I appreciate that one.
He's like, I'm hot. Come on. Okay. So I would say this, man. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Clint had a great idea that we're going to recap some of our podcast only episodes that come back. We have more stuff though. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Mm-hmm. But again, we will make time. We want to know what people want to talk about, want to hear about, want to learn about. Sharpen us too. We have to research this stuff, right? Yeah. And or at least Clint does. I read his notes and send it in. But really, we would love to hear from you wherever you're at around the world. That's exciting. So yeah, I can't say it enough. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, there's the email right there. Just email our producer Delroy, and he'll make sure it gets to us. And
absolutely,
we have Delroy and another person that his assistant, I guess. I don't know if she would be happy about being his assistant, but anyway, email Delroy. Yeah, I'll have to clean that part up. But anyway,
I like it.
Yeah, I might keep it. On there. Well, we'll see. But have you got anything else?
I'm good. You did a great job.
Well, no, I rode your coattails this time, so it's been fun tonight.
Hey, right here,
yes,
we call it pinto beans and cornbread hangover.
That's what it is. That's what it is. All right, so thank you for hanging out with us and listening to our conversation, and join us next time for another topic that we will try our best not to butcher. But anyway, you've been listening to After Dark with Jamie and Clint. I'm Clint. He's Jamie.
Still Jamie.
And we'll see you next week. Until then, tell your mama I said hey.
You've been listening to After Dark with Jamie and Clint. Visit our website at www.adwjc.com. This is Delroy. Until next time, thanks for listening.